The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has congratulated his Tunisian counterpart, Mr. Kais Saied, following his re-election for a second term. During his phone call, President Tebboune expressed his wishes for happiness and prosperity to the re-elected president and to the brotherly Tunisian people. In a statement, President Kais Saied thanked his people for their high sense of awareness and maturity, as well as their unique resilience. Kais Saied also reaffirmed his unwavering commitment to facing up the obstacles that are holding back the country's development and to sparing no effort to block the path of saboteurs. Mr. Kais Saied has been re-elected for a second 5-year term after securing 90.7% of the votes. According to the higher independent electoral body, his rivals Hayashi Zamil and Souhair Marzaoui ranked second and third with 7.35% and 1.97% successively of the vote, respectively. Now, President Tebboune has received messages from head of states and congratulating him for his re-election for a second term. The federal president of the Republic of Austria, Mr. van der Bellen, sent a message of congratulations to the President of the Republic on the occasion of his re-election for a second term, in which he expressed his desire to deepen bilateral cooperation. He added that the excellent relations between the two countries motivated him to work to deepen bilateral cooperation. Meanwhile, Vice President of the Republic of Namibia, Ms. Netumbo Nandi, congratulated the President of the Republic on his re-election, assuring that his country is ready to consult with him on how ways to promote the two peoples in Western Sahara and Palestine, noting that her country attaches great importance to the brotherly relations established between the two countries a long time ago. The International Conference on Digital Payments in Algeria, organized by the Ministry of Finance and the Bank of Algeria in collaboration with the Arab Monetary Fund (IMF), has opened here in Algiers. The two-day meeting was opened by the Finance Minister, Mr. Laziz Faid, in the presence of the Bank of Algiers Governor, Mr. Salahuddin Talib, and the Managing Director and Chairman of the Board of Directors of the AMF, Mr. Fahd bin Mohammed al-Turki. Under the theme Digital Payments in Algeria, Moving Towards a Cashless Future, the conference will cover a range of issues to be examined in debate sessions, including innovation in finance, financial services, and open banking, as well as providers and suppliers of payment services and instant payment systems. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad celebrates today the National Day of Algerian Diplomacy under the theme Immutable Positions in the Promotion of the Values of Peace and the Virtues of International Cooperation. Celebrated on October 8th each year, the event coincides with the date of Algeria's adherence to the United Nations on October 8th, 1962. It is the day when the first president of independent Algeria, Ahmed Ben Bella, raised the Algerian flag at the headquarters of the United Nations in New York in 1962. On this occasion, human and people's rights activist Mahrez Lamari said the Algerian National Diplomacy Day is celebrated today amid a breakthrough in the diplomatic action of the new Algeria.
This year we are celebrating the Algerian National Diplomacy Day within a context characterized by the breakthrough of the diplomatic action of the new Algeria. Algeria has always respected international law and peaceful processes aimed at achieving peace and resolving conflicts through dialogue, while respecting the sovereignty of countries by non-interfering in their internal affairs. Today, Algerian diplomacy has also succeeded in making its voice heard in international fora and regaining its place as a reliable partner in the settlement of territorial and regional social issues. Also faithful to its history, principles and ideals, Algerian diplomacy continues more than ever to take up the cause of legitimacy of the national liberation movements by accompanying Palestinian and the Polisario Front on the long path of liberation.
Let's recall that the National Day of Algerian Diplomacy is celebrated this year under the theme Immutable Positions in the Promotion of the Values of Peace and the Virtues of International Cooperation. Now, the Conference of Women Parliamentarians has started in N'Djamena, Chad, with the participation of a joint parliamentary delegation representing the two chambers of parliament. The participants to the conference will examine the role of African women in the face of challenges of peace, security, and development. In his speech to the Executive Committee, Senator Abdelmajid Ben Qadesh said that the African continent harbors great natural and calling on African parliamentarians to cooperate with the governments of their countries to implement appropriate plans and programs with a view to define an outline of sustainable development that generates wealth and social well-being for the peoples of Africa. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. More news. The Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Salah Goujil, has described the Israeli aggression against Gaza as a catastrophe against international humanitarian law and international peace and security, underlining the fierce diplomatic battles waged by Algeria and the free men of the world to enforce a ceasefire and to condemn and sanction the Israeli occupation. Asya Bikar tells us more.
In an interview with the Daily Ashab on the occasion of the first anniversary of the Israeli aggression against Gaza and the occupied Palestinian territories, Mr. Goujil indicated that the collective memory of the world will remember the furious Israeli crimes against humanity on October 2023 against the Palestinian people and in October 2024 against the Lebanese people. He said last year was a painful year as the world experienced a human tragedy which struck this time not only the valiant Palestinian people, but also all the components of the international community whose credibility was shaken, values were soiled, and regional and international laws and institutions were humiliated. Separately, the representative of the Hamas movement in Algeria, Youssef Hamdan, said the Al-Aqsa flood battle continues in the footsteps of the glorious Algerian Revolution. Mr. Hamdan stressed that without the battle of October 7th last year, the Palestinian cause would have fallen into oblivion. He said the Israeli attempts to Judaize the Al-Aqsa Mosque and to expand settlements in the West Bank, as well as its incessant crimes committed against Palestinian prisoners and its disregard for international laws and conventions have pushed the Palestinian resistance to follow in the footsteps of the glorious Algerian Revolution in a battle of sacrifice for freedom. Mr. Hamdan also stressed that the courageous decision taken by the resistance on October 7, 2023, changed the course of history, affirming that the Palestinian cause is now at the forefront of the international stage.
Now, in Lebanon, the southern suburb of the capital, Beirut, has been hit by new airstrikes carried out by the Israeli army, which has expanded its ground operations in the country's southern part. The new agency, ANI, said that one of the missiles fired by the Israeli forces hit an area near the international airport. Earlier, an Israeli attack hit a barracks in the capital's southern suburb, killing 10 firemen. This came as UN humanitarians called for an urgent action to put an end to the Israeli escalation in Lebanon in order to prevent the conflict from turning into the same disastrous spiral similar to that observed in Gaza. Addressing the press via video conference in Geneva, the head of the UN Food Programme for Lebanon, Matthew Hollingworth, stressed the imperative to do everything to prevent such a disaster from happening in Lebanon. The Israeli warplanes have massively destroyed schools building in the Gaza Strip, leaving thousands of children without education. UNRWA Senior Communications Manager Jonathan Fowler described the deprived children as a lost generation.
The overwhelming majority of school buildings in the Gaza Strip have been damaged or destroyed. Now, of course, schooling ceased at the beginning of this war. Over 600,000, close to 625,000 children have been out of education since the war began. This poses the very, very real risk of a lost generation of children, because a study that we conducted with the University of Cambridge recently found that for the 1 year of lost schooling, the socio-cultural impacts and the psychological impact on children can continue to cascade for at least 5 years. So we need to get Gazan children back into education as soon as possible.
The official of UNRWA told Radio Algeria International about the efforts of the agency to cope with the impact of war on the vulnerable children of Gaza.
The problem, of course, is that with the damaged infrastructure and the destroyed infrastructure, it's simply not feasible to get them back into schools in the typical sense. And also because of the mass displacement and the constant movement of population, we're not able to sustain formal schooling. But what we have done, we can't sit and do nothing waiting for it to become possible to begin formal education again. So we have launched a program called Back to Learning, which kicked off in August, where we organise activities in our shelters for children. That includes play activities, learning through play, basic literacy and numeracy, psychological, psychosocial support, all of the things which actually are essential to at least put the children back on the path of education and to give them some sense of a future and to give them some desperately needed respite from this war.
That was UNRWA Senior Communications Manager Jonathan Fowler. The UN Special Rapporteur on the Right to Health has stressed that the psychological toll on Gazans, notably children, has reached alarming levels. Mariam Barshi.
The United Nations Special Rapporteur said in a report to the UN Human Rights Council that this is psychological terrorism and part of Israel's genocidal plan, calling for an immediate action to be taken. She stressed the need for a ceasefire in Gaza to facilitate any form of recovery. According to the UN reporter, the level of anxiety and exposure to trauma, as well as the level of anticipation of violence, are highly abnormal, adding that the persistent threat of violence constitutes a major factor of psychological distress for the population of Gaza. The UN official pointed out that 50% of Gazans were already suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD) before the relentless violence they have endured since October 7, 2023. In addition, Mrs. Mofokeng spoke of an entire generation of children in Gaza who either died before they had their birth certificates or were barely alive.
This is Radio Algeria International. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe. Goodbye for now.
Born in the midst of the war of liberation and experienced in conflict resolution, Algerian